Hi, everybody. I'm Branden Sewell, owner of Seal Pro Painting located in Central Florida. I'm also the host of the Off the Ladder podcast, and we exist to help home service business owners learn so that they can lead well and ultimately live life off of the ladder. Today's guest is Kevin Frank, and he is the owner of the Koala Insulation located in Central Florida. So, welcome to the show today, Kevin. If you could give the listeners just a really brief introduction to who you are, what your business is, and a little bit of what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, Brandon. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Um, as you mentioned, my name is Kevin Frank. I'm the owner and president of Koala Insulation of Orlando and the Space Coast. We operate across most of the Central Florida region, cover all of Orlando, all the way up to Daytona and through Volusia County, all the way down through Indian River County, down to Fort Pierce. So we cover most of the Central Florida region. And we're a full service insulation contractor. So we specialize in spray foam, blown in insulation, bat insulation. Um, Air sealing, removals, anything regarding installation, we can take care of those needs for you. We kind of tout ourselves as the number one installation contractor in the state. We've got almost 20 locations across the state of Florida. And frankly speaking, the number one installation contractor in all of North America. It's well over 100 locations for Koala installation across the country and even into Canada. And we're the official installation provider for Lowe's. So someone wanted to go into Lowe's, they decided they didn't want to DIY it. Lowe's will send them to us because they know we'll take care of them. We're fully background checked, vetted, insured, certified, and trained. And we tout ourselves and take care of our customers.
That's awesome. Now, we met through our local BNI chapter here, the Space Coast BNI. And, I was very quickly impressed with you as an individual, how you carry yourself. And I can tell that you guys run an awesome operation. And so it's an honor for me to have you on here as well and get to ask you some questions about your business and really learn more about what you do and how you guys do it so well. As I mentioned before we started the show, our mission is to really help home service business owners learn how to run a business that does not require them to be out in the field doing the work. And there's a lot of learning curves to running your own business. The reality is that a lot of home service business owners may not have the training in many of the areas that are required in running a business, and that goes from just having the financial literacy, the marketing experience, sales training, leadership training, the ability to manage people and, HR related things. There's so much that goes into running a business. So by, diving into these topics, we can cover things to help home service business owners to really learn in those areas and then run better businesses. So I know just from knowing you personally that you have a pretty extensive corporate background.
Yes.
So if you could just talk about your corporate experience before starting your business.
Yeah, sure. And you make a very good point there just about the number of hats you wear as a small business owner and as an entrepreneur. My background, as you mentioned, is one where, I really grew up in corporate America. I was a kid. I'm a University of Florida grad, so I'm a Gator. I have an MBA from New York University. And I started my career at Procter& and Gamble, so a place where really training and development was top of mind for the entire organization. So it really rooted me in some strong fundamentals when it came to running a business and how to look at growing a business over time and building it with a strong foundation. So spent over 25 years in corporate America at companies like Procter& and Gamble and Reckitt Benckiser, and those are my consumer packaged goods days. I did a lot of sales and marketing. I was a brand manager for Lysol. Moved over to consumer electronics. I spent time with Panasonic as well as Samsung. Managing sponsorship rosters, overseeing national product launches, national campaigns. Spent some time with Newell Rubbermaid, head of consumer products for them. Um, Also spent time in education with a global education company as their VP of marketing. So many years, many decades, which is hard to say out loud because it just tells you how old I am. But a long time in corporate America in a variety of sales and marketing executive roles, and I think it prepared me well to own my own business and to run my own shop. But it's a I've never worked harder in my life, but
Sure.
it's never been as rewarding for me either, right? So I think that as much as I had functional expertise within the sales and marketing realms, being a small business owner, you wear a lot of functional hats, right? So I'm now head of HR, I'm now head of operations, I'm now head of finance and accounting, right? So everything rolls up to me. I don't have teams that I can go delegate it to now. It's all coming back to me, and it's still a team effort. We have a good team in place now, and it's going to grow with time. We've got a really good foundation to start with now, but I think that the corporate upbringing that I had and that training and development I had over years and decades in different, leading companies in corporate America really gave me a strong foundation to become a small business owner.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Just the experience that you had in the corporate setting, and I think some of the most valuable things from the corporate America that we could learn as small business owners is really just those fundamental
Mm.
and foundational systems and processes that are needed to be successful. I don't feel like it's something that you have to reinvent. It's like there's things that work, and then it's learning them and implementing them. And
Yeah.
so being exposed to how a company like Procter and Gamble, which is a huge company, being exposed to how they run a large organization like that and do it well is I'm sure it has been extremely beneficial because you see how they do everything right and how they handle things, which I would say fortunately and unfortunately in some ways, small business owners like myself, I was never a part of corporate America,
Hmm.
so I've had to read and study and try to figure out like, okay, how do these big organizations hire people? How do they find talented people? And then once they find them, how do they train them and onboard them? And how do they continue to invest in their people and grow them and provide opportunities? And how do you take a business from where you are now, and with all of those pieces grow it and continue to expand? And there's just so much that you have to learn. But I think one of the most valuable things that we can learn as business owners is leadership. And at the end of the day, I think one of the most valuable things that I've invested in is understanding what it means to be a leader. And that's helped me in my business to be able to do things like get off the ladder, because I've learned things like how to delegate
Mhm.
and how to entrust. I love, I don't know if you've ever heard of the leader Craig Rochelle, but Craig Rochelle always says delegate authority, not just tasks. And when you
Mhm.
delegate authority, you're creating leaders. When
Yeah,
you delegate tasks, you're creating followers that depend on you. And so I think that's like one of the most valuable things that I've learned to get to not be on the ladder and work in the field is, delegating authority to people, finding what they're really talented at, and then giving them the space to and freedom to succeed and thrive in what they're good at. And for us, that's having a trade. Yours is, you've got your, I don't know, do you call them technicians in your field or?
yeah. We
um,
have technicians that go and insulate people's homes. Yeah.
yeah, so those install technicians, obviously they learn that trade, that craft, and you're entrusting them to go and do those things. And so anyway, there can be a big learning curve on just the leadership aspect of running a business. And so
Absolutely.
I'm just curious to hear some input from you. How have you taken what you've learned from corporate America, and what are some of the key things that you've implemented to run a business that, one, offers a great product and service and has a great customer experience? And you know how have you accomplished that, and what are some like key things you could share with people who are trying to accomplish that?
Sure. Um, so a few different things I'll touch on if we have time, and I'll go back to I talked about starting my corporate career um, with Procter and Gamble, and one of the
Hmm.
first things that they really instilled in me was the importance of development and investing in people. So just to give you an example, the way you're measured, your success is measured while you're at Procter Gamble. Um, so I was measured on building the business, which was, how are you able to grow your territory or your market or your category that is assigned to you. But that was only half of my rating. That was only half of how my performance was judged. The other half of how my performance was judged was on building BOC, what we call building organizational capacity. So the way I was judged was half on growing the business, building the business, and half was on building organizational capacity. And building organizational capacity is all about how we invest in other people, how much time you spend training other people, how much time you spend developing and coaching people, how much time you spend mentoring people. And that really instilled in me something I took with me throughout the entirety of my career. And it was a mantra that I use with multiple teams that I use, even through the decades, was this idea that leadership is the action you take, it's not the title you hold. And it's
Hmm.
really meant to instill this sense of empowerment with your people that are reporting to you or that are in the teams underneath you. Because, I'm not looking for someone to just be a yes person. I want everyone to bring their full selves to work. I want you to bring all of your ideas, all your thoughts, or your passions, or your abilities. Um, and, I wanted to unleash and unlock the potential that everyone had. Because I was a firm believer that, the more we can all contribute wholeheartedly to what we're trying to do, the better off we'll be in terms of trying to achieve our goal.
Hmm.
And it's not just for the folks at the top with the senior titles to make decisions and to, tell everyone what to do. Everyone had, it was better if we had a collective voice and a collective, energy and process that really galvanized the talents of everyone on the team. So,
Hmm.
so some of the things you said earlier really resonated with me because I do believe that you have to delegate authority. You have to give people an opportunity um, to really make decisions and take actions that have consequence and that have impact. Because it not only does it allow them to be trained and to develop, but it gives them more skin in the game. Allows
Hmm.
them to be more committed. Allows them to be um, more dedicated. Um, and then you don't have, then you're not fighting that battle of, are they motivated or do they want to be there? Because people are going to show up because they feel valued and they feel appreciated.
Hmm.
They feel seen. So, all that kind of goes hand in hand, right? This idea of appreciating and valuing people and making them feel respected and acknowledged, and giving them, the sense of empowerment and accountability to contribute in a meaningful way.
Hmm.
So I'm really big on that mantra. Leadership is the action you take. It's not the title you hold. Um, I'll also, mention you talked about some of the things that um, help make some different organizations that have been companies that have been that successful. And I think, frankly, it's something that's true whether you're a Fortune 500 company or you're a startup or small business, and it's taking care of customers. At pretty much every company I've been at, they've had it at their core of their values and missions that they're gonna, meet and not just meet and exceed, but delight customers and exceed their expectations. And the more you can take care of your customers, the more they'll take care of you.
Hmm.
Um, I spent a lot of my time specifically from a sales and marketing standpoint, leading teams and leading company efforts around this idea of funnel optimization. And we can get into a long conversation about the different phases, components of the funnel. But at the end of it, it's all about how you take care of your customers because that experience that they have is going to drive that next cycle or wave of customers that you have. And you
Right.
want them coming in with a positive experience based on the customers you've already dealt with. So
Hmm.
I'll give you a quote from John Pepper, who's one of the CEOs of Procter and Gamble that I had when I was coming through the ranks, and he always talked about the importance of that first moment of truth. And the first moment of truth was this is going back a long time ago. I started my career as a shelf technology manager, which is hard to even anyone to fathom about these days. But you walk into a grocery store and you see our product versus a competitor product, and someone has to make a decision about what they're going to pick up. That's that first moment of truth, and that decision, what gets contributes to that decision is all the things that they know about that brand before they walk in that store and as they're walking down that aisle.
Hmm.
And that's everything from the experience they had with the brand in the past, or other people have talked about it, or what they've seen on in advertisements, or what they've heard about it, the word of mouth, whatever the case might be. And that's that first moment of truth. And it's true even in home services that you and I are currently find ourselves in, right? So people are have decisions every day. They have choices every day in terms of who they're going to go with. And that first
Hmm.
moment of truth is what are you doing to contribute to that decision that they have to make? The second moment of truth is when they actually utilize your service or your product and the experience they have, right? So that's going to dramatically impact, do they have a positive experience, and does that positively impact your next wave of customers who are going to engage with you. But these are all things that are vitally important. So whether it's a large company or a small company, taking care of your customers, taking care of your employees, and empowering your people are going to be vital to your success.
Yeah, I love that. And I really like what you talked about with like the funnel optimization. And, just for the listeners, like, what I would see that is, you're looking at your customer's journey through your company, and then making sure that every touch point with that customer is excellent. So
Yeah,
when they find you online, how easy is it, and how optimized and efficient is it for them to contact you?
sure.
If there's a barrier there, or if there's roadblocks, or if it's difficult to get in touch with you, or to reach out for your service, well, that's an area you have to work on. Once they do reach out to you, that first point of contact, is that person that they speak with friendly, engaging? Are they able to be professional and answer the person's questions that they have? And then what is it like to schedule with you and to get somebody out to their home? Is it quick? Is it efficient? Is it easy for them? Is there great follow up and communication? And then once you arrive, what is their experience? Do they have a friendly crew or team that is skilled, has great customer service, and provides a great experience? And then what is it like once that service is done?
Mhm.
How do you conclude it? Do you just walk away and there's no more contact, or do you have a good conclusion to finishing up a project? And what does that whole process look like? And I think as business owners, we should be looking at each one of those areas constantly and trying to improve it, make sure that it's efficient, make sure that when our customers reach out, they're having the best experience possible, and finding the weak points and working on those and trying to make them better. And, of course, we're not going to be perfect, but we can seek out those areas and constantly be trying to make them better. So I think that's just a really strong point for the listeners to be thinking about. Really think of that entire customer journey and
Exactly.
make it the best that it can be, because like you said, how we make the customer feel in each one of those moments is what defines our brand. Like, how does it, and then they remember, like, oh wow, that company made me feel this
Mhm.
way. And everything that we do contributes to that feeling and how we're remembered by those customers. And it has such a impact on who we are as a company. So I really just love that point that you made.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. It's I think that one of the things that I would encourage small business owners, or business owners in general, to do is not be afraid of the data. Like, dive into the data, be data driven with your decisions, be data driven with how you're analyzing and reviewing the business. I think far too often it's easy to fall back on just anecdotal feedback or observations that you're going for your gut, and sometimes you've got to do that, right? I mean, it's what
Hmm.
makes the difference between us as humans and driving a business and running a business versus just some machine making decisions, or making a call on something. But the more you can understand the data, analyze it, see what it's telling you, the more informed you'll be to make better decisions. And I say
Yeah.
that because we've got almost 100 reviews, all 5 stars, right? And that's something that's intentional. That's something that is the result of a lot of work. To your point, of every phase as they go along that customer journey, making sure we exceed their expectations. So
Hmm.
at the top of the funnel, there's all the marketing and efforts that you do to try and generate from a demand generation standpoint, and that how that contributes to your lead volume and the folks coming into your funnel. But that, you want to make sure that you're contacting them with speed, and with quality. So, speed to lead obviously is very important, and we really
Mhm.
focus on that. But it's not just getting to them fast; it's getting to them in a quality way with important information that they can action, and also gives them options, right? So, speed to lead, but quality of contact is so vitally important. And as you mentioned, every contact that we have is meant to set up the next contact for success. So
Mhm.
if someone's calling in, that person is answering the phone or calling that lead. They have to be positive, energetic, informative, so that they're now giving the next person in that journey, whether it be we have a consultant going out to see them to give them a free home evaluation. It gives that person a better leg to stand on, and then that consultant is out there, they want to make sure they're educating the customer. They want to make sure they're building that relationship, building that trust, and also getting enough information so that when we have our install crews going out there, they're set up for success because they have the information. They've been properly prepped and briefed as to what they're going to find, so they don't get caught off guard, and they can deliver on their phase of the journey with success. So that's how you get all these reviews that are all 5 stars, because you exceed customer expectations continuously along the way. And it's so vitally important. It goes back to what I said. You take care of customers, and they'll take care of you and your business. And we made that a focal point for us.
Yeah, I think the brands that I admire most have such a focus on customer experience. And, obviously, I think one of the most focused on brands, when you talk about leadership and customer experience and all that, is Chick-fil-A. Like, you can't deny just how excellent they are at delivering a just phenomenal world-class customer experience. And I talk about that so much with my team. How we treat and handle our customers makes all the difference in who we are as a company.
Yeah.
I just did an interview today, and I was talking to this gentleman, and I said, um, I want you to be a skilled painter, but even more than that, I want you to be excellent at customer service
Hmm.
if you come and work for me. I want you, because you can take a Chick-fil-A sandwich and, just any other chicken sandwich from any other brand and, put them on a plate. And most people are gonna be like, oh, it's a chicken sandwich. They're not going to be so much focused on how it was made and, all
Yeah.
that. Some people might have some preference, but what I think is the real driving force for Chick-fil-A success is not that their chicken is like so much better or so phenomenal. It's the experience, right? It's their
Hmm.
customer service that really takes it's the customer service almost makes it taste better. Is it's just the experience that you have. So I think that's so key. One of the things that I like that you hit on in the last thing you said was how you have to, as you grow and you delegate things in your business. Maybe you have a receptionist or admin person and a sales team and guys who are out doing the production. um, the communication and the setup, the handoff to that next team is so vital in the entire experience for the customer. So if they have a really bad experience with the first point of contact, maybe an admin or receptionist or call center, whatever, if they have a bad experience there, well, it's not going to transition very well over to production. And and you have to think about the salesperson too. Like if the sales guy is like terrible at building rapport with the customer and taking notes on the customer's preferences and really getting an idea of what's important to that customer, well then the production is going to
Yeah.
suffer.
Exactly.
So I tell my people all the time, like we have to think about everybody else. Like um when what motivates me to get up every day is I'm thinking about my team. I'm thinking, how can I bring in the work, how can I keep this business going and make it the best that it can be so that everybody has work and can put food on the table. And we all do that together. It's a team effort. And if we're just thinking about ourselves or we're not thinking about our team, then one part can make the rest fall to the ground. So it's a team effort for sure.
No doubt.
Um,
I just want to touch on that real quick
yeah, yeah,
because you
absolutely.
mentioned something that resonated with me, and I tell my folks all the time, we're not here to sell anybody anything. I don't want you selling a
Hmm.
product or selling a service. We take a very consultative approach. We're here not to sell products, but to solve problems.
Hmm.
And I think taking that approach, because listen, we might go into a home and their installation is perfect. I don't want anybody pressuring them to get something they don't need. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
that's not what we're here for.
right.
It's interesting. We live in a world where people love to buy things, but they
Hmm.
hate to be sold to. So,
Sure.
we can't go in there with the approach of we're going to sell them something. It has to be how are we going to help them? How are we going
Yeah,
to help them solve a problem? How are we
that's good.
going to educate them and give them the information and the tools they need so that they can, address the issues or concerns that they have? And how can we be
Hmm.
a part of that solution? So that's really important for us, and it's something I've carried with me throughout my career. Before becoming a small business owner, it's something that is a hallmark of how we operate now. Um, you talked about communication, and it's important to have effective communication with customers, but it's important to have effective communication internally. You know, we
Hmm.
have we have weekly meetings. I call them SOX meetings, the sales, operation, and customer service. And
Hmm.
it's an opportunity for all the different departments to come together and communicate and share information, share insights, share learnings, and
Hmm.
make sure we're setting each other up for success. Understand what's coming down the pike. Understand what are the key learnings from what happened, the previous week or the previous month. And it's
Yeah.
important to have that feedback. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
No, that's really powerful. We do Monday meetings, and we do the same thing. We look at the week, we look at the jobs that we have coming up, and we make sure that we have all the information, to hand off to the production team. Because I think one of the most challenging things that as you grow as a company is having that internal communication and
Mhm.
making sure, like I tell my sales guy, I'm like, when you go out and you sell that job, you should be thinking that entire time, how do I set the production team up for success? Like if you show up and you don't take note that they're going to need a 40-foot ladder for part of the house, and they show up and they don't have what they need, well, that's on you because you didn't communicate. You weren't paying attention to those
Sure.
details. You weren't looking around and thinking like, okay, what are some key things that I might need to communicate to set up the production team for success. The client has dogs, and you got make sure that the team closes the gates when they go in and out of the backyard. Don't let they have cats, they're concerned about getting out the front door, and they mention that make sure that the front door is always closed, and don't let animals out. Just anything that the customer might have preferences on, or anything that we can do to make sure that we create a great experience for the customer, things we want to focus on. And so I think that's definitely a very key point for you to focus on as you grow your teams and grow your business. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is, I think one of the most challenging things for business owners, and I know this is probably one of my biggest struggles, which I'd love to get your feedback on this, especially with your training that you've had in corporate America, is conflict.
Hmm.
We can have areas that need to be addressed within the business, right? And maybe there's somebody who's not performing up to the standards, or there's just something that keeps falling through the cracks, a ball that gets dropped constantly, and you know, conflict and having those hard conversations can be hard, right? But they're necessary for the team to operate at a high level and
Absolutely.
to offer that experience that we promise to our customers. So I'm just curious, do you have any feedback, any recommendations that you would share with the listeners on the best strategies that you have for leading your teams, maybe some strategies for feedback, and even when that's not positive feedback, and how do you handle moments of conflict that might be necessary to operate at a certain standard and level in the business?
Yeah, no, it's a great topic to cover. I think what's important is it's vitally important that you set expectations. for your team, and that's how we're going to operate as a team. The values that we hold fast, um, and the expectations that we have of each other. Because as I talked earlier about, hey, leadership is the action you take. It's not a title you hold. That's about empowering people and giving them the opportunity to lead and to contribute. But with that comes accountability, right? I mean,
Hmm.
everyone has a role to play, and that role is vital to the collective success of everything we're doing. So if you're dropping the ball or if you're not bringing it the way you need to, like that has an impact beyond just your silo or your lane. That has an impact across your organization. So that's where accountability becomes key, because you sometimes have to have those conversations where you have to remind folks of, hey, like, this is why you're here. This is why what you're doing is important. And you have to sometimes reinforce or remind them of why what they're doing is important. Like, this is not just your little area here. Your little area that you think is little actually impacts everything else that we're doing, right? This is like an assembly line, right? So everything, if one thing falls short, all of a sudden the rest, the final product doesn't look as good, right? So,
Hmm.
um, and sometimes you, to your point, there's conflict, and you have to have those conversations. And like I said, it's about holding people accountable. But if you've built that sense of trust and that sense of sharing and development within your team, where people know that, hey, listen, I'm not Kevin's not going to put me in a position where not to succeed. Like my goal, my role as a leader is to put everyone in a position to succeed, right?
Hmm.
See, help everyone grow and develop. So if you look at, if people are if you set that expectation and you kind of create that environment, it's they're going to view it through the lens of, okay, this is to help me get better, because ultimately you have to perform, right? I mean, this is
Hmm.
every listen. We're not this is not nonprofits that we're robbed. We're trying to
Right.
grow. We're trying to make revenue. We're trying to make sure everyone can have a living, to make a living, and that means everyone has to contribute in their own way, in a way that meets expectations. So is it means sometimes you have to have those conversations where you lay things out and try to do it in a constructive fashion, but also just be very honest and be very candid. I don't think you should sugarcoat things. If someone's not meeting expectations, you understand. You lay out where the issues are, where they're falling short, why that's important, why it's important
Hmm.
that they step things up, and to be candid, as a small business owner, you have to be prepared to hire fast and fire faster, if need
Hmm.
be. For as much as you want to create an environment of people who can contribute and grow, if folks aren't the right fit for what you're trying to do, that happens. That happens.
Yeah.
This is life. Everything's not going to be hunky dory all the time, and
Yeah.
you wish people well, and you send them on their way, or you help them transition. But you have to have people that are committed, that are bought in.
Hmm.
If it means you have to give them a little bit of coaching and development, if you see that potential in them and it's worth it, then absolutely do that with them. But don't be afraid to hold people accountable. And if they can't meet your standards and meet your expectations, sometimes it's better to part ways.
Yeah, that's really good. I really appreciate your feedback on that. I'd say it's probably one of the hardest areas for me to lead in. And I think a big part of that is I have so much grace and I see so much potential in people
Mm.
that sometimes it's hard for me to let go and realize, like, hey, this person has decided this is the path that they're choosing to take, and I can't force them to grow. I can't force them to do what's required of them, no matter how much potential I see in them. So that's always challenging for me, to that firing fast part. I love it. I listen to a podcast called the Entree Leadership Podcast, and it's led by Dave Ramsey. He's
Mhm.
obviously known in the personal finance world, but he has a leadership side of his business, and it's called Entree Leadership. And I love one of the things that he says all the time is, like, to be unclear is to be unkind,
Mm.
and to be clear is to be kind.
Sure.
So we have this, sometimes I think in our mind we think by avoiding conflict that we're being kind because we're like sparing somebody
Mhm.
from the truth, or that thing that they need to hear that's going to help them to grow, which can be uncomfortable. And so I think sometimes as leaders, we think we're protecting them by not sharing what
Yeah.
we need to, but in reality, we're actually hurting that person. And so I think it's definitely a hard principle to learn and apply, but I think it's important to say that when you are clear and you create clear expectations. But then I think the other side of that is really holding the standard. So it's one thing to say like, hey, this is the expectation, and this is I'm being clear about this, and then the other side of it is like your follow through and your accountability. I've told you what the expectation is, and hey, you haven't lived up to it, and this is what has to change, or this is the action that's going to take place. And so I think that it's hand in hand. Be clear, create proper expectations, but then follow through and hold people accountable. So I
Yeah,
think that's
absolutely.
pretty powerful.
Indeed, indeed.
Absolutely. As we bring this to a close, I'd just like to ask, like, is there anything that you feel like maybe we haven't covered, or something that you would really like to share with the audience to help them in their leadership, and maybe help them to run and operate a better business?
Yeah, I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts. One in the marketing space, just because that's where I've spent a lot of my time over the course of my career, and some one of the things that I've really tried to focus on with this business with Koala Insulation. Um, I've tried to make sure I take a diversified approach to our lead generation, demand generation. Um, I and maybe it's just my learnings from the corporate America experience that I have, but I never wanted to be completely reliant on just one lead generation source. You want to have multiple channels that are contributing to leads and contributing to your business, so that you don't get caught unprepared when something goes awry, or something
Hmm.
unforeseen happens. So as much as you can, try to cultivate multiple lead generation sources and
Hmm.
channels, so you have a diversity in terms of what's contributing to the success of your business. So whether that means it's a Google PPC campaign, or it's radio, or it's partnerships, or if it's print advertising, or SEO, whatever the case might be, try to diversify that, so you have a multitude of different lead generation sources that are contributing to that funnel, right? And then
Yeah, that's good.
as I mentioned, try to be data driven. Look at what's happening within your funnel. How are things converting in terms of clicks from your site into actual leads, and leads into actual estimates or appointments, whatever the case might be, and how that's matriculating through to become actual revenue producing jobs, and just understanding what those conversion points are. Because those, when you see that data and you understand what's how that's performing, then you know where to spend your time, where
Yeah.
you know where to what needs to be addressed, and you can have spend the time and the resources to do that. Otherwise,
Hmm.
a lot of times you're just flying blind, and as a small business owner, there's plenty of things to keep you busy every day. If you allow that to be the case, and instead of and not focus in on kind of where the true issues lie. So just encourage folks to do that. From a leadership standpoint, I mentioned this earlier. It's about my job as a leader is to make sure I'm setting up my team for success in the different roles that they play, and also providing, where possible, a pathway for their growth. Right. So if it means cross training, or giving folks a chance to to spend some time or grow into another area where they've expressed some interest, or I see there's a particular talent or expertise. Try to encourage that. And allow for people to grow within their role, and be a star within their role, but also to learn other facets of the business, so that they can feel like they're growing and they're developing. Like I said, it's something that actually allows people to buy in more, because they feel like they're being valued, they feel like they're being appreciated, and they bring themselves to work in a more wholehearted way. So I think people talk about the golden rule in terms of treat people the way you want to be treated, and you got to imagine, put yourself, have some. I always try to take a very empathetic approach. So if I was in
Hmm.
the shoes of that person, how would I want to be treated? How would I want, to be given a path forward, if there's such one, if there's one that exists? And I try to put people in a position to succeed where if at all possible. Um, but still, like we just talked about, setting expectations and holding people accountable.
Yeah. So we have a few minutes left. I want to ask you this quick question. So when you with the marketing in thought and leadership, are there things I think people ask themselves all the time, like, some people leave corporate America to be a part of small businesses because they provide a different feeling of like belonging and
Mhm.
not being so big. Are there things that you specifically looked at in your corporate role and said, okay, I'm not going to do this in my small business because, for whatever reason, whether it was like how you handle your teams and how you lead them, or how you make decisions on like disciplinary action or whatever. Can you share anything that you did not want to take from corporate America
Sure.
and apply it in your small business, and why?
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons why I left my corporate career and moved into being an entrepreneur and small business owner was, I wanted my hard work and all the efforts that I was putting forth to my own maximum benefit.
Hmm.
Number one, right? So hey, if I'm gonna bust my ass and be spending all these hours, to grow a business, I'd rather it be my business than someone else's. So that was
Hmm.
number one. And number two, just from a lifestyle standpoint and sense of feeling fulfilled, I wanted to get out of the bureaucracy that oftentimes comes with a career in corporate America and large companies, right? So,
Hmm.
whether it's how the business is performing and how the business responds to that in terms of taking care of its people, or like I wanted to be able to have more control of that, and
Hmm.
also take a more um, familial approach to it. That listen, we're all a team here. We're all. Sometimes we're going to go through valleys that are going to come with the mountains, right? So we're going to
Hmm.
have peaks. We're going to have valleys, and how do we weather those storms? And we could do it in a way that takes care of everyone, and
Right.
tries to treat everyone as part of the team versus looking at people as just as a number. And hey, we're gonna we need to make this kind of profit this quarter, so we don't have the revenue, so we're just going to cut costs, and those costs come with headcount and like those, and sometimes that's necessary, right? Even in smaller companies. But I think I wanted to take an approach where I had more control of that and where I could, kind of treat people who are contributing in a significant way and part of what we're trying to do and trying to grow, and be able to protect that, right? And be able to protect the
Hmm.
development and the growth of people. So, trying to
Yeah.
get away from the bureaucracy and also just having more control of my fate, my career was one of the reasons why I decided to do it.
Yeah, that's really good. I'll end this episode with a quick story just to kind of reflect on what you said. In 2020, obviously we had the pandemic,
Mm,
and my wife works for a large company, and she got laid off 5 weeks before our son was born.
mm,
And so with that, we lost our health
sure.
insurance, everything, income, that we obviously were expecting in a time where we're having bring a new baby into the world. And I'll never forget the way I felt, when that happened and getting the news. And um, me being a small business owner, obviously I was going through the same pains that many businesses all over the nation, all over the world were facing. These questions of, hey, we're going through this, and maybe now is the time where I cut all of these people and lay people off, and those are hard decisions that you have to make. But I think for me, I strive to make that the absolute last resort, right? So even I will at times make decisions within my business to my own detriment
Mm,
because I want to support my team.
yeah,
And I'm so thankful for them and the hard work that they bring to the table every day. And sometimes they don't even realize the sacrifices that we make as
yeah,
small business owners
good
for
point.
them. But it's driven out of that desire to not be the type of company, like you said, that just looks at the profit and loss statement and says, oh well, time to cut the it's time to eliminate some of these people. And I'm usually thinking like, what can I do more? How can I work harder to keep my people, not how can I let them go?
Yeah,
So I don't know. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as a small business owner as you build the culture and build your company. I think
agreed
that's what
wholeheartedly.
attracts people to small businesses, is
I agree.
having that attitude and mindset. So um, anyway, Kevin, I really appreciate your time and coming on here and sharing so much value with my listeners. I'd love to, at some point, do a follow up episode and maybe do some deep dive into marketing and sales more. But I love the value that you've brought today. And I hope that you, if you're listening to this episode, I hope that you've gotten a lot of value from it. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video, comment, share your feedback, subscribe to the channel, share it with somebody. If you're listening on any major podcast platform, whether that's Apple or Spotify, please rate and review the podcast. That'll help the podcast get out to more people so that we can help more small business owners just like you. And lastly, if you need any resources, please check the show notes below. There's some things down there that'll help you to run your business better. And as always, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Off the Ladder podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.